The vast expanse of space was filled with empty stars and dying worlds. No one would have guessed that, hidden in the darkness of the farthest reaches of the galaxy, humanity had made its mark. It had been decades since Earth fell to the relentless alien forces, its cities reduced to rubble, its inhabitants scattered across the galaxy, and its once thriving civilizations silenced. But what the galaxy's conquerors hadn't realized was that Earth was not its only legacy. A small, secret colony had been established far from the prying eyes of the dominant galactic empires, a final testament to the resilience of humanity. The colony was called Solace, and it rested on a remote planet in a system that was largely ignored by the powerful factions who ruled the stars. The settlers, mostly refugees and survivors, were a mix of scientists, soldiers, and visionaries. Their mission was simple: survive, rebuild, and plan for the future. They had no interest in the power struggles of the galaxy. Their goal was to one day return to the forefront of the cosmos, not as slaves or subjects, but as leaders. Life on Solace was far from easy. The planet was rugged and uninhabitable to most, but its isolation was both its strength and its curse. The settlers had crafted an entire society from scratch, relying on ingenuity and determination. Alien tech scavenged from old battlefields across the galaxy was modified and integrated into the colony's systems. With each passing year, they grew stronger, more advanced, and more prepared for the day when they would finally make their presence known. One of the brightest minds among the settlers was Dr. Alara Voss, a former Earth scientist who had dedicated her life to engineering the tools that would allow humanity to not only survive but thrive. She had spearheaded the colony's research into energy sources that could rival anything the galaxy's most advanced civilizations had developed. Her experiments were starting to show promising results: powerful, energy-efficient engines capable of pushing ships to speeds that would rival even the fastest fleets in the galaxy. Alara's team had also made huge strides in developing weapons that could match the might of the galaxy's most fearsome empires. The weapons were not just technologically advanced, but uniquely human in their design: unpredictable, clever, and deadly. It was only a matter of time before the first phase of the plan would begin. Solace was no longer just a sanctuary, it was becoming something far greater. But the galaxy was vast, and the most powerful empires were blissfully unaware of the rising threat in the outer reaches. The time to reveal humanity's new dawn was still far off, and it would require careful planning. For now, Alara and her colleagues were content to let the rest of the universe continue their ignorance, biding their time until the right moment came. And that moment was fast approaching. The galaxy had long believed humanity to be a relic of the past, a lost species with no future among the stars. The fall of Earth had been catastrophic, and the centuries that followed had seen humankind reduced to scattered colonies, fighting for survival against alien invaders and galactic empires. The great powers of the galaxy ruled with impunity, treating humanity as a forgotten footnote in the grand scheme of the universe. But in the quiet darkness of the outer rim, far beyond the reach of the galaxy's most powerful empires, humanity's rebirth was already underway. Solace, the hidden human colony, had been growing steadily over the years, its population thriving in the secrecy of its remote location. However, it was not just the settlers who had been growing. The colony's technology had advanced at a rapid pace, driven by the brilliant minds of humans who refused to be beaten. Dr. Alara Voss and her team had made incredible strides in developing new energy sources, powerful weaponry, and cutting-edge spacecraft. They had integrated alien technology scavenged from countless planets into their research, crafting innovations that were years, if not decades, ahead of the galaxy's greatest civilizations. But all of that hard work was about to be noticed. It began with a strange anomaly. Scientists at the colony detected a faint energy signature coming from deep within the galaxy, unlike anything they had ever seen. The signal was weak, but it was unmistakably artificial, a sign that something, or someone, was out there. At first, the settlers assumed it was just another failed experiment from the galaxy's many rogue factions or another failed attempt by alien species to develop new technology. But as the signals grew stronger, Alara and her colleagues quickly realized that this anomaly was something far more dangerous. Their technology had inadvertently drawn the attention of the galaxy's great powers. The leaders of the most powerful empires in the galaxy, arrogant, comfortable in their unchecked dominance, had become aware of a strange phenomenon emanating from the farthest reaches of the galaxy. Initially, the powers dismissed it as an anomaly, too distant and too faint to be of any real concern. However, their curiosity soon overcame their arrogance. Could this be a sign of a new threat? Or perhaps it was a sign of some kind of forgotten human colony, long lost but now somehow risen from the ashes? The first to take interest was the Vastari Empire, a colossal interstellar civilization known for its vast fleets and iron-fisted rule. The Vastari spies had intercepted the signals, and their intelligence officers quickly deduced that it could only be the work of humans. The Vastari had long believed humanity to be extinct, nothing more than a shadow in the annals of galactic history. But now, it seemed that someone, somewhere, was still out there. The Vastari's ruling council convened in a secret meeting to discuss the implications of this discovery. Some saw it as an opportunity to eliminate any remaining humans once and for all, while others feared the prospect of a new human threat rising to challenge their supremacy. At the same time, a clandestine group of bounty hunters, mercenaries, and smugglers operating under the banner of the Zekril cartel had also picked up the signal. Known for their ruthlessness and greed, the Zekril cartel had long been engaged in covert operations throughout the galaxy, hunting down high-value targets and selling intelligence to the highest bidder. The cartel's leader, Zekril Pharaohs, recognized the signal for what it truly was, a potential treasure trove of advanced technology that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. If the humans on this hidden colony had indeed created weapons and technologies that could rival the might of the empires, the cartel wanted to control that power. Ilara Voss, still unaware of the growing interest in her work, continued to lead her team in refining their technology. But as the colony's research advanced, so too did the danger. The settlers on Solace had no idea that they were now at the center of a galaxy-wide search, their every move monitored by unseen eyes. The first signs of contact came when several rogue ships began to appear on the edges of the system, as if testing the colony's defenses. The strange ships, silent, stealthy, had no identifying markings, but their presence sent a ripple of unease through the settlers. Then, one fateful day, a powerful fleet of Vastari warships appeared on the fringes of the system. Their presence was undeniable, a sign that humanity's hidden colony had been discovered. Ilara Voss, standing on the observation deck of Solace's main research facility, saw the fleet with her own eyes. The massive ships loomed on the horizon, their guns primed for an assault. The time had come for humanity's secret to be revealed. The question now was, would they survive the storm that was about to break? Ilara wasted no time. She called an emergency council meeting, gathering the most trusted leaders of the colony's factions. There was no more time for secrecy. Humanity's existence was known, and the galaxy's great powers were already closing in. The settlers on Solace had to make a choice: submit to the demands of the empires and live as slaves once again, or fight for their future. It was then that the decision was made. They would not bow. They would not beg. Humanity's rebirth had begun, and the galaxy would soon learn that underestimating humans was a grave mistake. The faint glimmer of distant stars was now overshadowed by the looming shadows of warships, an unmistakable signal that humanity's secret was no longer safe. The Vastari Empire, having discovered the existence of the hidden colony on Solace, wasted no time in mobilizing their forces. Their massive fleet cut through the black void of space, a terrifying reminder of the Empire's overwhelming power. The warships, each the size of a city, glinted in the starlight as they formed a blockade around the outer edges of the system. It was clear that they weren't here for negotiations. They were here to eradicate the threat before it could grow any stronger. But the people of Solace were not the same as the helpless humans who had fallen to the invaders long ago. They were survivors, innovators, and warriors who had spent years preparing for a moment like this. Ilara Voss stood at the heart of the war room, her mind racing as the reports poured in from every corner of the colony. The fleet was closing in fast, and the forces of the Vastari Empire were many. But she had one advantage: they had underestimated the resourcefulness and cunning of humanity. The entire colony had been secretly preparing for an eventual invasion. Under Ilara's leadership, the settlers had developed a network of underground bunkers, hidden weapon caches, and advanced defense systems that could be activated at a moment's notice. They had studied the tactics of the galaxy's most powerful empires, learning how to fight dirty and outthink their enemies. Solace was not an unassuming target, it was a well-fortified fortress in the making. "We can't let them take us without a fight," Ilara said, her voice steady, yet filled with the weight of the moment. She turned to her council. "We have the technology. We have the advantage of surprise. It's time to use it." As the first of the Vastari warships broke through the edges of the system, the colony's defense systems roared to life. Automated turrets concealed beneath the planet's surface surged into action, firing a barrage of energy pulses at the incoming fleet. The Vastari ships, expecting no resistance, were caught off guard as their shields flared in response to the sudden onslaught. But it was only the beginning. Unseen to the enemy, Solace's fleet of advanced ships, constructed in secret over years of painstaking effort, emerged from their hiding places. Unlike the clunky, slow vessels of the Vastari Empire, these ships were sleek, fast, and equipped with technology the galaxy had never seen. They were powered by energy sources so efficient that they could outperform even the most sophisticated fleets. The humans had taken alien technology and modified it to suit their needs, blending it with human ingenuity to create a fleet that was more deadly than anyone could have imagined. The first battle between Solace and the Vastari was unlike any the galaxy had seen. The human ships darted through space like predators, striking with precision and speed. Vastari warships, caught off guard by the unexpected tactics, found themselves outclassed at every turn. The human vessels targeted weak points in the Empire's massive ships, exploiting flaws in their defenses that no one had thought to consider. The battle raged, but the humans, outnumbered and seemingly outgunned, fought like they had nothing to lose. Meanwhile, on the ground, the settlers of Solace prepared for the inevitable invasion. The Vastari Empire would not sit idly by, and their ground forces would eventually descend upon the planet. Ilara knew this well. While the colony's ships were holding their own in the skies, the fight for survival would ultimately come down to the humans' ability to hold their ground on the surface. In the underground bunkers, human soldiers, many of whom had never seen a true battle before, gathered their weapons and took their positions. They were not soldiers by training, but they were soldiers by necessity. The people of Solace had been forged in the fires of hardship and survival. Their strength was not in their numbers, but in their unity and determination. Ilara stood with her team, watching as the first dropships descended toward the surface. She could see the storm of fire and steel that was about to be unleashed. The Vastari were coming, but humanity would be ready. "Let them come," Ilara whispered to herself. "We've been waiting for this moment." The fight on the ground was brutal, but the settlers of Solace refused to surrender. The Vastari soldiers, accustomed to conquering without resistance, found themselves in a nightmare. Traps, ambushes, and relentless human ingenuity made the surface of Solace a deadly place for anyone who dared to invade. It wasn't just a battle for survival, it was a message to the galaxy: humanity was not a species to be overlooked any longer. As the warships in the sky clashed and the ground forces fought tooth and nail, a sense of urgency filled the air. Ilara's voice crackled over the communication systems, rallying the soldiers, engineers, and civilians alike. They were all in this together, fighting not just for their lives, but for the future of humanity itself. The battle between the humans of Solace and the Vastari Empire intensified, the sky above the colony a swirling mass of fire and destruction. The sound of ion cannons clashing, energy blasts reverberating across the atmosphere, and the roar of falling warships filled the air. The ground forces of the Vastari Empire had landed, but they found themselves in unfamiliar territory, where every move was a trap, every corner a potential ambush. The people of Solace, their resolve hard as iron, fought with a ferocity that their enemies could not have predicted. Ilara Voss paced the command center, her mind racing as she tracked the progress of the battle. The colony's defense systems, though impressive, were under constant pressure. The Vastari had adapted quickly, deploying specialized forces trained for planetary sieges. But humanity was always one step ahead. "We've almost completed the ground defenses, but they're closing in on the central complex," Lieutenant Sarah Holt reported, her voice strained with the intensity of the battle. "They're relentless." Ilara nodded, eyes scanning the holographic display showing the battlefield. A dozen red dots blinked ominously, signaling the Vastari ground forces closing in on their last line of defense. The soldiers stationed in the central complex were the heart of their resistance, a symbol of humanity's will to fight. "We can't let them take the heart of Solace," Ilara said, turning to her team. "Activate the last line of defense. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity is capable of." On the surface, the final line of defense was humanity's trump card, an experimental weapon powered by the energy sources that had been the focus of years of research. The weapon was designed to be the last resort, capable of unleashing a devastating wave of energy capable of disabling entire fleets and armies. It had never been tested in a real combat situation, but Ilara had no choice. The colony's survival depended on it. Meanwhile, in the sky, the battle between the human fleet and the Vastari warships raged on. The human ships, agile and nimble, darted in and out of the Vastari's line of fire, hitting weak points in their ships with precision strikes. The Vastari, for all their overwhelming firepower, were caught off guard by the cunning and unpredictability of the humans. Their superiority in numbers and firepower was being systematically dismantled by the ingenuity of the human fleet. Commander Terence Granger, the leader of Solace's fleet, barked orders to his squadron as they engaged the Vastari flagship. His heart raced as his ship dove toward the enemy, laser fire lighting up the void around them. He had spent years training for this moment, and now it was finally here. The fate of humanity rested on his ability to lead his crew to victory. "Focus fire on their shield generators. We need to cripple their flagship before they bring in reinforcements." Granger shouted into his comms, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. The human ships swarmed the Vastari flagship, their coordinated attack chipping away at the enemy's defenses. With each strike, the Vastari flagship's shields flickered, weakened by the relentless human assault. The Vastari crew, once confident in their invincibility, found themselves scrambling, trying to adapt to the ferocious onslaught. Back on the surface, the last line of defense was activated. Deep beneath the central complex, a massive energy reactor came to life, humming with raw power. The experimental weapon, a colossal beam cannon, powered up, drawing energy from the colony's advanced reactors. As the weapon's charge reached critical levels, Ilara's voice echoed through the command center. "Firing in 3, 2, 1. A brilliant beam of energy shot from the cannon, tearing through the atmosphere and arcing toward the Vastari ground forces. The ground shook as the blast slammed into the enemy ranks, disintegrating anything in its path. Vastari soldiers were thrown into the air, their bodies incinerated by the concentrated energy. The beam carved a path of destruction, cutting through Vastari tanks, mechs, and infantry, forcing them to retreat. The ground forces of the Vastari Empire, stunned by the unexpected power of the weapon, faltered. The remaining soldiers scrambled to regroup, but the damage had already been done. The tide of the battle had shifted. Back in space, the human fleet saw the effects of the ground assault in real time. The Vastari flagship, now severely damaged, attempted to flee, its engine sputtering under the constant barrage. The human ships, sensing their moment of triumph, closed in for the kill. "Prepare to launch the final assault," Commander Granger ordered, his voice filled with urgency. The human fleet, their morale boosted by the victory on the ground, moved in for the final strike. With coordinated precision, they launched a devastating barrage of missiles and energy blasts, finishing off the weakened flagship. The Vastari warship erupted in a series of explosions, sending debris scattering across the battlefield. But the battle was far from over. Though the Vastari fleet had suffered a crippling blow, their remaining forces were still formidable. The Zekral cartel, having monitored the conflict from the shadows, saw an opportunity to capitalize on the chaos. Their ships, sleek and deadly, began to move into position, ready to pick off what remained of the scattered Vastari forces. Solace, though victorious for now, was far from safe. The galaxy had taken notice of humanity's unexpected resurgence, and forces from every corner of the galaxy would soon converge on the colony, eager to claim it for themselves. Ilara Voss stood at the window of the command center, watching the smoke and fire of battle fade into the distance. For the first time in years, she allowed herself a moment of peace. Humanity had proven its strength, its ingenuity, and its will to survive. But the road ahead would be just as treacherous. The true war, one for the future of humanity in the galaxy, was only just beginning. The victory over the Vastari was more than just a military triumph, it was a declaration to the galaxy. Humanity, long believed to be a weak and broken species, had defied the odds and shown the universe that they were not to be underestimated. The battle had been won, but at a heavy cost. Solace, despite its victory on both the ground and in space, was not without its scars. The colony's infrastructure had taken a hit, and many lives had been lost in the fighting. Yet, amid the destruction, there was a glimmer of hope, a future that humanity could seize if they could survive the inevitable storm that was coming. Ilara Voss stood at the center of the war room, surrounded by her closest advisors. Despite the fatigue in her eyes, her resolve remained as strong as ever. The victory over the Vastari was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, and with humanity's resurgence, every empire, every cartel, and every power-hungry faction would soon be knocking at the door of Solace. "Commander Granger, report," Ilara said, her voice steady, yet filled with the weight of responsibility. Granger, having just returned from the front lines, was visibly drained, but he did not hesitate. "We've repelled the Vastari, but we're not out of the woods yet. The Zekril cartel is already moving in. I've received reports that their ships are maneuvering toward our location. They're looking to pick up the pieces, take control of what remains, and possibly sell whatever they can to the highest bidder." Ilara's jaw tightened. The Zekril cartel had long been a shadow in the galaxy, ruthless, opportunistic, and known for their mercenary work. They would stop at nothing to take advantage of the chaos caused by the battle. And the humans of Solace had something they wanted. "What's the status of our defense fleet?" she asked. Granger's face grew grim. "We've sustained damage in the skirmish with the Vastari. We're capable of holding our own, but we'll need time to repair and regroup. If the Zekril cartel moves in too quickly, we might be in trouble." Ilara's mind raced. Time was not on their side. The humans of Solace had no intention of surrendering, but they would need to act swiftly if they were to stand a chance against the cartel's mercenaries. She turned to Lieutenant Holt, who had been monitoring the situation closely. "Lieutenant, what about our allies?" Ilara asked. "Can we count on any outside support?" Holt hesitated before responding. "We've sent out distress signals to the remaining human colonies in the Outer Rim. But it's going to take time for them to respond. We're on our own for now." Ilara felt the weight of the situation bear down on her shoulders. The colony had proven its strength in battle, but now it faced a new challenge, one that would test not only their ability to fight, but their ability to outmaneuver their enemies. "Prepare the fleet," Ilara ordered. "We'll need to strike first before the cartel gets too close. I want every ship ready for action. Granger, I need you to coordinate with the fleet commanders. We'll give them a fight they won't forget." Granger nodded, and the team dispersed to carry out her orders. Ilara remained standing, staring out at the horizon where the battle had raged only hours before. The aftermath was still unfolding, and she knew that this victory, hard-earned as it was, would be short-lived unless they could deal with the cartel threat swiftly. The Zekril cartel's fleet arrived in the Solace system within hours. Sleek, efficient, and built for one thing, profit, their ships were not designed for long battles but for precision strikes and swift takeovers. They were opportunists, and they had arrived to capitalize on the remnants of the Vastari conflict. As the first cartel ships entered the system, the human fleet went on high alert. Ilara stood in the command center, watching as the enemy ships made their approach. Their designs were unmistakable, light, fast, and heavily armed. They were mercenaries, not invaders, but their ruthlessness was legendary. "Commander Granger, are we ready?" Ilara asked, her voice sharp as steel. "We're ready," Granger replied, standing beside her. His eyes were filled with determination. "But we need to be smart about this. If we engage them head-on, we'll be at a disadvantage. They'll outmaneuver us with their superior speed." Elara nodded, already forming a plan in her mind. The humans of Solace were not just fighters, they were survivors, innovators, and thinkers. The cartel might have the speed, but humanity had something far more valuable: ingenuity. "Then we'll turn the tables," Elara said, her tone firm. "Prepare for a feint. We'll let them think we're retreating, draw them in, and then strike when they least expect it." The plan was set into motion. As the cartel ships moved closer, the human fleet began to pull back, seemingly retreating into the dark recesses of the system. The cartel, eager to capitalize on their apparent advantage, followed closely, not realizing that they were walking into a trap. As the cartel fleet entered a narrow sector, Elara activated the fleet's hidden weaponry. Mines, camouflaged by the gravitational anomalies in the system, were detonated, causing a massive explosion that rocked the first wave of cartel ships. The human fleet, which had circled back under the cover of darkness, now struck with deadly precision, catching the mercenaries off guard. The battle raged again, but this time, the humans had the upper hand. The cartel's ships, caught in the unexpected attack, struggled to regroup. Elara watched from the command center, her heart pounding as the fleet turned the tide. The humans of Solace had made their stand. The galaxy would soon realize that underestimating humanity was a grave mistake. The battle between the human fleet and the Zekral cartel raged on with relentless intensity. The cartel, caught off guard by the ambush, struggled to regain their footing. Their sleek ships, once so agile and deadly, now seemed clumsy in the face of humanity's ingenuity. The tide had shifted, but the cost was not without consequence. Ships were still being lost on both sides, and the battle in space was only half of the war. On the surface of Solace, the pressure was mounting as the Zekral cartel's ground forces began to land. They were mercenaries, not an organized empire, but their experience in planetary sieges made them dangerous. The first wave of cartel soldiers had breached the outer defenses, and though the human resistance had held strong, it was clear that time was running out. In the command center, Elara Voss watched the unfolding chaos with a mix of determination and resolve. The human fleet was slowly but surely gaining the upper hand in space, but the ground forces still needed support. They had to hold the line until reinforcements could arrive. "Lieutenant Holt, what's the situation on the ground?" Elara asked, her voice tight with tension. Holt's face appeared on the holoscreen, her expression grim. "The cartel's ground forces are organized and relentless. They've breached our perimeter defenses, and we're being pushed back. The experimental weapon on the surface is still operational, but we don't have enough forces left to protect it. If we lose that, the cartel will have access to the weapon's technology." Elara's mind raced. The weapon was humanity's greatest defense, the thing that had allowed them to turn the tide against the Vastari. Losing it would mean surrendering the most powerful piece of technology they had, one that could potentially change the balance of power in the galaxy. The stakes couldn't be higher. "We need to deploy our reserve forces," Elara said, turning to Granger. "Can you pull the fleet back for a coordinated strike?" Granger, still coordinating with the fleet commanders, nodded. "It's risky. If we pull back too far, we could give the cartel an opening to launch a counteroffensive. But if we don't act now, the surface will fall." Elara's gaze hardened. "Then we make our stand. We'll push them back, on the ground and in space. I'm not letting Solace fall." Above, in the heart of space, the human fleet had already begun its shift. The cartel's flagship, a massive ship bristling with weapons, had begun to retreat, its shields weakened by the devastating barrage that had been unleashed on the cartel fleet's rear lines. The moment was ripe for a final strike. Granger's voice crackled through the comms. "Commander Voss, the fleet's ready. We can take out their flagship, but we'll need to be quick. Once we break their command ship, the rest of the cartel will scatter." Then let's finish this, Elara replied, her heart pounding as she gripped the edge of the table in front of her. Initiate the assault. This is humanity's moment. In space, the human fleet surged forward, their ships moving in perfect synchronization. Each vessel was a part of a well-oiled machine, and their strike was swift, brutal, and decisive. Granger's squadron led the charge, tearing through the cartel's flanks with deadly accuracy. The cartel flagship, a massive warship that had once seemed invincible, now found itself under siege. Despite the cartel's superior numbers, the humans' coordination and precise attacks had cracked open the flagship's defenses. Energy blasts ripped through the flagship's shields, sending shockwaves across the battlefield. Target their engines, Granger commanded, his voice echoing in the comms. Disable them, then we'll finish it. With one final, coordinated barrage, the human fleet disabled the cartel flagship's engines, leaving it vulnerable and exposed. In that moment, the cartel's most powerful ship was nothing more than a sitting target. The human ships closed in, and in one final strike, the flagship exploded in a burst of fire and metal, marking the collapse of the Zekro cartel's command structure. On the ground, the human soldiers had made their final push. Reinforcements, led by General Aiden Cross, arrived just in time to turn the tide. The cartel's ground forces, already stretched thin and demoralized by the loss of their command ship in space, began to retreat. General Cross, standing tall amidst the chaos, rallied the human forces with a roar that cut through the din of battle. This is our home. Fight for it. Show them what humanity is made of. The human soldiers, their morale bolstered by the victory in space, surged forward with renewed determination. The cartel, unable to regroup after the destruction of their flagship and the overwhelming resistance from Solace's defenders, were forced to retreat. It wasn't a complete victory, but it was a critical one. The cartel's ground forces had been pushed back, their hold on Solace shattered, and the way forward for humanity was now clear. The price of victory had been high, many lives had been lost, and the colony's infrastructure was heavily damaged. But the cartel was finished. Elara Voss watched the final cartel ships retreat into the blackness of space, their presence no longer a threat to Solace. Humanity had proven that they could stand against the galaxy's most dangerous mercenaries and come out victorious. But the galaxy was vast, and many more challenges lay ahead. The empire-building factions, the galactic coalitions, and even the Vastari would now be watching Solace, waiting for the next move. The dust had settled. The once terrifying presence of the Zekro cartel had been pushed back, their flagship shattered, their forces scattered. The survivors of Solace had come through the battle victorious, but the cost had been steep. Despite the devastation, a sense of triumph hung in the air as the survivors looked out over the colony's scorched landscape. It had been a hard-fought victory, but humanity had proven, once again, that it was not a species to be ignored. Elara Voss stood on the steps of the Central Command building, gazing out at the colony. The sun, which had once been obscured by the dark clouds of war, now pierced through, casting a golden light over the survivors. Humanity had faced its darkest hour, yet now, they were stronger for it. She could feel the weight of the future pressing down on her shoulders, but for the first time in a long while, it didn't feel as though it was too much to bear. Beside her, General Aiden Cross stepped forward, his eyes scanning the horizon. "We've won, Commander, but the war isn't over." "Not by a long shot." Elara nodded. "I know. The Zekro cartel is gone, but that was just one player in a much larger game. Solace has made its mark, but the galaxy is still out there, vast and unpredictable." Cross turned to her. "And they'll come for us. You know that. Other empires, mercenary groups, and those who view us as nothing more than a threat to be eliminated. But, we've changed the narrative today." "Yes," Elara said, her voice steady with resolve. "Today, humanity showed that it cannot be written off. Solace might have started as a secret, but it's become a symbol. A symbol of what happens when a species refuses to bow to the will of the galaxy. A symbol of what happens when we fight." The wind blew gently, the remnants of the battle still visible in the distance, but it didn't feel like defeat. It felt like the beginning of something much larger. Ilara turned to Cross and the other commanders who had gathered around her, their faces filled with the same unspoken understanding. "We'll rebuild," Ilara continued, her voice strong. "The colony will rise again. We'll make the repairs, train the next generation of soldiers, and we'll fortify this place like never before. But beyond that, we will spread the message. Humanity's resurgence doesn't end with Solace. We will unite the colonies, we will forge alliances, and we will show the galaxy that we are not just survivors. We are a force to be reckoned with." The group stood in silent agreement. They knew what had to come next. The threat from the Zekral cartel was over, but there were many more challenges to face. Solace, now a beacon of hope, would be the launch pad for humanity's rise across the stars. In the command center, Lieutenant Holt was already coordinating with the remaining human colonies, sending out messages of victory, requesting aid, and beginning to form the foundation of a united front. A new wave of humanity was about to rise, and Solace would be the heart of it all. The once distant dream of uniting the fractured colonies was now a tangible goal, made possible by the victory humanity had just secured. They had shown the galaxy that, no matter how many times they were pushed to the brink, they would never bend. They would rise. And with each victory, the rest of the galaxy would come to fear the name of humanity. In the weeks that followed, Solace began its slow recovery. The technology and resources salvaged from the remnants of the battle were put to use, patching up what was broken and fortifying the colony's defenses. The human fleet, once scattered and isolated, now began to unify under a single banner. The victories, both on the ground and in space, had proven their strength. Other human colonies, inspired by Solace's resilience, sent ships and supplies to aid in the recovery effort. The first steps toward a unified human federation were taken, a coalition of worlds who would no longer allow themselves to be pawns in the game of galactic powers. And as Ilara looked out at the bustling activity on the colony, she felt the weight of the future lifting from her shoulders. It was a new dawn for humanity. The galaxy, once a cold and indifferent expanse, would never be the same. The stories of Solace's victory would spread like wildfire, inspiring those who had long been oppressed and subjugated. Solace would become a symbol of defiance, a reminder that even the smallest species could rise to greatness. The galaxy's powers, the empires, the cartels, and the warlords, they would come to learn one undeniable truth: humanity was no longer the underdog. And in the hearts of its people, humanity now carried the fire of their ancestors, the fire that had once driven them to survive, to innovate, and, ultimately, to conquer. They had won their place among the stars. With the defeat of the cartel and the rise of the human alliance, a new chapter in galactic history began. The name of Solace, the secret colony that had defied the odds, would echo throughout the galaxy for centuries to come. And humanity would never again be underestimated.